So I'm not going to let you go. You got to give me something. I've got to have something because the enemy is coming, and I've got to have something from you. And so it hastened Jacob to his destination. There's a rejection of Paul by the Jews that pushed him into being the apostle to the Gentiles. You remember the book of Acts. Paul kept going back to the Jews. He'd wash his hands and say, I'm through with the Jews. I'm going to the Gentiles. But every chance he got to go back to the Jews, he kept running back to the Jews. So it came to a point where finally they just pushed him out and pushed him out and pushed him out and stoned him and beat him and everything else. And he says, okay, I got it now. I'm going to the Gentiles. It was not good friends that helped him there, or bad friends that helped him there. It was good enemies. You know how Daniel got to be the man who got into the lion's den? There were 120 people that he was over. He and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were 3 presidents over 120. And they found Daniel praying and finally got to the point where they said, look, we got to get rid of this dude. We got to do something to him. We don't like him. And so the 120 went to Darius the king, Daniel chapter 6, and said, look, if we find anybody praying to any other god other than you, we're going to put him in the lion's den. Bad enemies or good enemies. Hastened Daniel going to the lion's den. And when he came up out of the lion's den, Darius said, okay, instead of demoting this guy, look, from now on, nobody speaks against the God of Daniel. Nobody says anything about him. But had it not been for his bad enemies, Daniel would not have prospered as much as he did by going into the lion's den and coming out unscathed. What's your point, Pastor? The point is still the same, that good enemies will hasten the plan of God for your life when bad friends will try to keep things a status quo. How did Joseph get to Egypt, where he later on became second in command to Pharaoh? Was it his father who said, Joseph, I think you need to go on a missions trip to Egypt? Was it his mother who said, Joseph, I see leadership in you. I think you need to go down there. God might use you in Egypt. It was a hatred of his brothers who wanted to kill him, but then one of them said, no, let's not kill him. Let's get a few bucks for him. Let's sell him. So he ends up in Egypt, where he matriculates through the process and then becomes second in command of Pharaoh. But were it not for his brothers, were it not for their hatred, were it not for their resentment, he would not have been pushed out of the comfort of his father's house into the kingdom of Egypt. Because enemies not only show you that it's time to move, sometimes they can push you into your destination. They think they're pushing you down there. Joseph finally understood. You thought you sent me here for evil, but God was pushing me over here. God was pushing me over here for good. You thought, John, when you put me on the Isle of Patmos, that you were pushing me out to die, but God was putting me over here because there's another revelation that he has to bring to me. I submit to you that were it not for the hatred and the antics of Bull Connor, the heroics of Fred Shuttlesworth would not have been so magnanimous. I submit to you that were it not for the hatred of those who were against us as a people, our accomplishments would not have been so great. Were it not for being put in the Birmingham jail. Dr. King's letter to his fellow clergymen, and were it not for the hatred, his letter would not have been read by people even today as a masterpiece of why it is important to get involved. And so as I prepare to close, I tell you, don't hate your good enemies. If you want to despise anyone, despise your bad friends. The ones who won't challenge you to move to the next level. The ones who won't challenge you to pray as God has intended you to pray. The one that won't challenge you to move on in God's direction for your life. Even though temporarily it may be painful, and even though it may be hurtful, and even though for a while it may seem like it's the wrong way to go. The book of Proverbs says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. It is not your good enemies that are the source of your problem. It's your bad friends. They're the ones that cloak for you when they know you're wrong. They're the ones that would rather have the temporary benefits you give them rather than to tell you the truth, knowing that it may separate them from you temporarily. They're the ones that tell you that you're doing okay when they know down inside that you're not. They're the ones that tell you that what you have is good enough when they know it's not. They're the ones, like Peter, who will give you answers because it serves them better, rather than giving you the things that serve God better and you better in God's kingdom. And so as we prepare to pray, again, I remind you, don't hate your good enemies. Despise your bad friends. Let's pray.